Hi there, you're very welcome to this fourth episode in our ongoing series on knowing God. I'm on a journey to discover exactly who God is and why and how he wants to have a personal relationship with each one of us. And in this episode we're going to be looking at a big theological term which helps us to understand who God is. The incommunicable attributes of God. The incommunicable attributes of God. Now that's a big word, isn't it? What does it mean? Why do we use such a term? Well, it's derived from the Latin, which means not to be imparted. And it basically means that it's the elements of God that we are not able to communicate to others. That's what incommunicable means. Because you see, God is so big and so mighty and so awesome, it's very hard for our small, finite human minds to comprehend who he is and to understand him, let alone have a personal relationship with him. Think about your favourite food or your recipe, for example. I made a beautiful apple and blackcurrant crumble the other week, and I also dabbled in a second crumble. I made ginger and pear, and they were absolutely delicious. And as far as I was concerned, you couldn't improve on the recipes because they tasted absolutely fantastic. They didn't need to be changed, modified or improved. And it's the same with pizza or chips or ice cream or chocolate. Those comfort foods that we all love and enjoy, they make us feel good when we eat them, and it's good to share with our family and friends. There's good attributes in those foods and in those recipes, and it's the same with God, because God is complete in all things. He is complete, he is perfect, and there's a unity between all the different characteristics and components that make up who God is. He is just right. He needs no change. So there's a connection there. All the attributes of God make a connection. And it helps us to understand who God is and to understand that he wants to have a personal relationship with us. And we said at the beginning of our journey that we're going to use the Bible to help us to understand who God is and to know him better. And the Bible calls God by different names. It uses a lot of what's known as anthropomorphic language. Language that speaks about God in human terms so we can understand him. Here are some examples. God is often described as an animal in the scriptures. He could be a lion, an eagle or a lamb. He's named after the elements of the earth. He could be a light, a torch or fire. He could be named after certain types of people, such as a husband, a father, and as a king even. He could be named after an action. See the Lord, or taste and see that the Lord is good, or rising up when God rises up in glory. So there's lots of descriptions, there's lots of names given to us to help us describe who God is. Look at Psalm 148. Look at these verses here where the psalmist is saying that the Lord is commanding his people on the earth to worship him. He's saying in verse 7 of Psalm 148, "Praise the Lord from the earth, ye great sea creatures and all ocean depths, lightning and hail, snow and clouds, stormy winds that do his bidding, you mountains and all hills, fruit trees and all cedars, wild animals and all cattle, small creatures and flying birds, kings of the earth and all nations, you princes and all rulers on earth, young men and women, old men and children." An amazing description of who God is in creation. And there's four elements that we can see about who God is, these incommunicable attributes of God that we can see for ourselves. The first one is independence. Independence. What's that? Well, in Acts chapter 17, verse 24 and 25, Paul the apostle writes, "The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by human hands. And he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else." So God is complete. We were saying God is complete. He is independent. We didn't create God. We might create God in our own image so we can... A lot of people do that to help them understand who God is. But God is finite. He exists outside of time and space. And he was created. He created us for his glory. And our significance is found in him as the people of God. The scriptures talk about us being the people of God. Secondly, God is unchanging. Consider these words from James chapter 1 verses 16 to 18. James writes, "Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all he created." So God has created us. He's created us to have a relationship with him. So there's a purpose and there's a plan to his actions. Thirdly, God is eternal, probably the most important of his incommunicable attributes. Before the mountains were born, Psalm 90 says, "Or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God." So God is what we call omnipresent. He is here, now in the present, he has been in the past, and he will also be in the future. And Colossians, Paul writes to the Colossians in Colossians chapter 1 verse 17, God, he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. So that's important, isn't it, when we consider the eternal dimensions of who God is. And fourthly, the unity of God. And John talks a lot about unity in the New Testament. John writes to us in 1 John chapter 1 verse 3 and 4, "We proclaim to you what we have seen and heard, so that you also may have fellowship with us. And our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son Jesus. We write this to make our joy complete." And that's true, isn't it? If we know these attributes, if we know who God is for ourselves, that we can have joy in him. Well, that was a quick whistle-stop tour of the incommunicable attributes of God. Join me next time as we delve into more characteristics of who God is. Thanks for watching. See you then. Bye bye.